share. All right, here we are. And I'll go into slideshow mode for us. All right, so I don't know about you all, but this is a picture that resonates with me. As you can see, the gorilla is Google Analytics 4, and the little girl who's running is literally anyone who works on a website. I would say literally every marketer as well, right? This is the reality. Google came out of nowhere with a hefty demand that we all make this switch. And to be fair, Google released Google Analytics 4 back in 2020, I believe. So we've had a little time. We've had about 3 years. So, but it still doesn't feel like enough time, right? And so here we are. I'm sure some of you have already upgraded to GA4. Some of you might have been using it for a while. Maybe you didn't just upgrade. Maybe you've been using it for a while. And I would also venture to guess that some of us on this call maybe haven't quite figured out how to actually get GA4 running. Data's not coming in yet, maybe. So no matter where you fall in that spectrum, my goal today is to give you something that can be helpful to you. All right, so if you agree with the agenda item I have so far, it is to give you as much actionable information as possible. In fact, I have a quote. Somebody said to me, the only thing I think I can add or ask with regard to this talk is, does it also show some of the hidden, sneaky, powerful features some people may never find? Feel like those golden nuggets could help too. Just who do you think told me this? Who do you think said this sentence to me? Throw it in the chat. I can't see the chat, Joe, but I'm pretty sure people are guessing. Who do you think put this in the, yes, 100% Mr. Joe. Yes, he's the one. He's the one, Joe Glover, the chap who started the marketing meetup. This is what he said to me. And so that is exactly what we're going to do today. Give you hidden, sneaky, powerful features. As you can see, he's always working on your behalf. So I give Joe a lot of credit. These are the kinds of conversations and the kinds of preparations that he does ahead of time to make sure that you have meaningful and valuable time with people like me. So I appreciate you, Joe. And I'm sure your entire community does too. So I just want you to know, those of you who are listening to me right now, that you are one of the most valuable assets of any business that you walk into. You really are. And the reason why I say that is because you have access to invaluable data and insights that can help any business scale its growth, crush its goals, and impact more lives. The reason why you have this power, I call it a superpower, is because you are willing to learn about the data, the data and the insights that run most businesses, that help businesses understand the most important asset that they need, which is that customer. So the fact that, yes, GA4 is confusing, yes, it's overwhelming, but ultimately, let's not lose sight of the fact that you, by being here, by wanting to learn this, are very valuable to the business that you represent, whether you're an agency and you represent a number of clients, or you are your own business and you want to take this back home, or you're a blend of those or a mix of them. So feel empowered and know that you're here for a reason. I want to direct your eyes to the right-hand side over here. Every slide that I share with you will have this same call out here telling you where you can get this presentation and connect with me. So you can find this entire slide at this link, b.link/TMM23. In fact, I'm going to go there right now for all of us to see. This is what it looks like when you go there, and you can see the entire slide deck is here for you to peruse, okay? So you don't have to take copious notes. You don't have to try to keep up with me, because I'm gonna give you a lot of information today. I've got 15 blunders to share with you in the time that we have, and we're gonna get through them, I promise, okay? So this link will give you everything that you need. It'll also tell you how to connect with me on LinkedIn, Twitter, all those things. So if you're looking for how to, promote this time together, all my links are in there as well. All right, so again, they live on every page. So let's keep going. A bit about me, I'll go through this really quickly. I'm a professor, I'm a university professor. I teach marketing, I teach specifically digital marketing. to graduate students and undergraduate students. So I have to keep on top of this stuff in order to make sure that the next generation is prepared to work for all of you, right? I don't just want to send them out of the classroom. I'm also happy to report to you that this was not the case last time I was in front of you, but now I am the board president for the Digital Analytics Association, which is the association for all things digital analytics, including the tools that we all use, including Google Analytics, which is a digital analytics tool. And I'm also founder of a couple of businesses. Joe mentioned SEO Sprints. Yes, I own that. I also own Sprint Marketer. I own Leadsable. I am a serial entrepreneur. And so Sprint Marketer is the business that I really I'm showing up as today. That's the hat I have on because I teach. I'm for that person who wants me to teach you digital marketing. And then if you don't have time and you just want Mary to send you leads, then Leadsable is the business for that. So I wear several hats. I just know that there are several avatars that are close to my heart. And these are the two, the marketer who wants to learn and the business owner who just wants somebody to send them leads, or the marketing team that says, just do that part so we can focus on branding or other things. Let's get into the details, okay? Because this is how I really feel right now. I feel like I want to tell Google, go somewhere else, okay? Unfortunately, we can't do that. So we have to sprint instead. We have to figure out what the milestones are in order to correctly implement GA4 and remove all those blunders that might be in the way. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to sprint. The way that I see, this is how my mind works. My mind works in milestones and frameworks. And that's why Joe sometimes says I have clarity. It's because that's just how my mind says I cannot operate in gray spaces. So when it came to learning GA4, I quite literally said to myself, as I was struggling through it, like all of us, what are the milestones? What are the things I need to do? And repeat for everybody. And as I was doing the work for clients, I was documenting the steps and I was able to bucket them. So these are my proprietary sprints. I call them analytics sprints. And this is what you need to do if you want to have a successful relationship with GA4, because GA4's relationship with us is very emotional, right? Sure, we need to look at data and it's very transactional in that way, but you and I, we have a very emotional response to Google Analytics 4, am I right? We feel strongly about it one way or the other, right? And so it's really a relationship, and we want to get to the point where we're able to climb all the way to the top of that relationship, and it's a successful relationship. So in order to do it, we have to follow this SCORE framework: the setup, the correct, the optimize, the report, and then the export, SCORE. We got a score, okay? So the first step in GA4 is to set it up correctly using Google Tag Manager. That's the key. If you use Tag Manager and you set it up, it gives you flexibility. It opens up the relationship and you can do the rest of the milestones, the rest of the sprints, I call them. These are all individual sprints. You can do them much easier without needing a third party. Life is easier for you, okay? Second step is to correct your setup, because there are a lot of default settings in GA4 when you first set it up that dump bad data into your reports immediately. And if you're not aware of them, you don't correct them, you're going to have some issues with your reporting. Your numbers won't look the way that they have looked. And not that they should, but they're going to look inexplicably wrong. Okay, so we need to correct some of the data. Then we need to optimize GA4, meaning now that you've cleaned it up, now you've got to feed your own data into it. Okay, by default, GA4 won't measure, for example, if somebody fills out a form on your site, clicks on a CTA button, call to action button, purchases products from you, those e-commerce transactions, things like that. So you have to optimize GA4 to be fit to your business, but you can't optimize if you're dealing with bad data or if you haven't set it up, okay? Report. So now that you've got the right data coming in, then you can report it. Okay, now I've got purchases coming in. How do I report on my e-commerce sales? Now I've got contact form fills coming in. What's the best way to represent that in a report? Okay. And then finally, we're all very scared, I know I am, of the export, I should say the expiration date that's on GA3 right now. I don't know if you heard the news, but Google put it out that it's going to delete your GA3 data in a year. So in a year, it won't be there. GA3 will flatline, all the data will go away. Right now, some of us are still seeing data in our GA3 accounts because Google is phasing out how quickly it's going to turn the data off. So if you're seeing data in GA3, it's just because we're lucky. It just hasn't gotten to you yet. But come 2024, they're going to delete all the historical data. It's going away. So this last sprint is about how do we export what we have? How do we make sense of how do we own our data so that we can do with it what we want? If you want to compare to 2019, you got it, okay? So this is the score framework that I use for analytics, and I've used it for all my clients. So in our time today, I'm going to take each of these, and I actually go through several elements that I check for under each of these, but I'm going to highlight 3 or 2 of the main sprints within these milestones that will definitely be the biggest hitters, okay? Just so you know, I have over here. So inside, let me show you something. Let me show you. You guys are my people. So let me show you something. Here on this page that you're on, some of you may have seen this red bar, okay? Here's what I've been doing. As I've been working on GA4 for my clients, I have been basically making buckets of all the things that I'm doing under each of those 5 sprints I just shared with you. And so even though I told you today that I'm only sharing the first, like 2 or 3 under each because of our time, in fact, it's a full-blown course. If you wanted to go in there and check it out, it's free to try. And then if you wanted to upgrade, you can. But it's all here if you're someone who's like, well, what are the other setup sprints, Mary? And what are the other correct sprints or the optimized sprints? They're all in here for you to try. So anybody who wants to, that's what that red button is for, okay? All right, so let's get in here. Let me tell you about the biggest blunders. Let's get it big, nice and big, nice and big. Okay. All right, one of the big blunders that I see is that you have, you don't have a mock GA4 property for testing. So you're making all kinds of changes to GA4 and you are running into potential regrets. This person got a tattoo that says no regrets, but clearly this person has regrets. In fact, they have regrets, but they spelled it wrong on the tattoo. And so I don't want this to happen to you. So what I recommend that you do, and I do this, is I essentially create, once I have my GA4 property, I duplicate it. I recreate it again, following the same setup steps. And I just have a copy that I call mock, or I call it test, or I call it demo. And it's the one that I do all my tests on. It's the one where anything I need to do, I need to set up, I do there first. I watch it, and then maybe in a day, I implement the same thing on my existing property. So that's one way that I've found to really, to avoid blunders. Biggest way to avoid blunders, don't make blunders on your master account, okay? The next setup sprint that I think can be really helpful is that sometimes I find that people have ballooned counts, like you're looking at your data in GA4 and your numbers are really large and you can't make sense of them. And if you're seeing that, if that is you, maybe put a 1 in the chat. My numbers are so big, I don't even know why they're so large compared to GA3 or compared to a few months ago. Sometimes this is caused by mixed up settings. So mixed up settings meaning that you have the Google tag configured more than once on your site. Somehow it was added one way and then added another way, somehow accidentally. And that may seem like a technical headache, but actually Google has recently added a feature that just lets you check a box and say, if the tag appears in multiple places on my site's code, please only count it once. And they've released it. So every single sprint that I talk to you about will have a problem slide, like why should I fix this? And then another slide that says how to fix it. Okay, so here I'm walking you through how to fix it, but I'm gonna also show you a screenshot here. You literally just have to go into your admin section, click data streams under the Google tag section, click on configure tag, and you'll find yourself on a page like this. You toggle this on, problem solved. Okay. Let's move on. Correct sprint. Let me show you a couple things that I love to do in this sprint. Okay, this one. I don't have Google's demo GA4 properties linked to my account. Okay, so one of the things that I recommend, especially if you're learning GA4, is to bring in Google's demo properties. Google allows you to basically look at the GA4 sample GA4 account, it opens your eyes. You get to see all the things that Google Analytics is capable of. And so you simply just have to follow the instructions. Well, first, let me show you a screenshot. Here's an example of a report from the demo account. And with the demo account, when I go to the events screen, I'm able to see events that I never recognized before. When I was learning GA4, because I imported the demo account, I was able to know that I could create custom events. I had heard that, but the concept was strange to me. But imagine you have a sandbox to play with, and it gives you potential for you to click on any report and say, oh, Google's example, Google Sandbox has this data, mine doesn't. So that tells me I'm missing something, or I could add something on. It gives you the opportunity to imagine what is possible, which I think can be sometimes a roadblock to learning GA4. Luckily, you can add the demo property simply by following the instructions I've given you here, and then clicking on the one that says GA4 merchandise, Google Merchandise Store. And then it just automatically shows up in your account, and you can start clicking on it, similar to just the same way you click on your own data. It opens up your imagination. Another correct sprint is that you are looking at reports in GA, but you are ignoring the little icons at the top of your reports. You don't want to do this, because oftentimes those icons, so anytime you're looking at a report, look up and see, do I have a green check mark, or do I have an orange or red alert? That is telling you whether the data you're looking at is sampled or threshold, meaning that it's not all your data, it's only, it's missing rows. All right, so anytime you look up at any report you're looking at, because I know we all just look at the data, look up and see what Google is trying to tell you about what data might be missing from that report, because that might answer the question of why are my numbers not as right as I think they should be, that kind of thing. Okay, so click on that. Google is trying to tell you something that you might be missing out on. Click on that and read where it says learn more to resolve whatever the issue might be. Those are your fixed steps for if that issue is happening to you. I have more correct sprints for you, because this is where I see the biggest downfall, I have to tell you, is the correct, where you set it up and then you jump to reporting. All right, so another thing is you did not review your default data retention settings. Okay, dude, where's my data? All right, so by default, Google Analytics inside the admin section has a place where you can say, whenever I'm using the exploration reports, which is a section in Google Analytics where you can custom create reports, you can set it so that it only can access data of 2 months or 14 months. By default, it's defaulted to 2 months. But if you are able to expand that to 14 months without breaking any data rules by your IT department or your legal team, I encourage you to expand that so that anytime you're exploring your data in the exploration report section, not your standard reports, not your regular reports, but the exploration section, you want to make sure that you turn that on. I've got screenshots for you right here. Okay. And instructions of how to get there. You want to set data retention to 14. Unless it's against your company's rules to hold on to data that's longer than that. That's longer than 2 months. Okay. Next correct sprint is this you? Because I think if this is you, you're busted. Busted. So I've been bad. My coworkers and I are polluting our GA4 data every single day. I love this image. So this image, so I see this all the time. You are inside Google Analytics. You're using the data, but it's actually collecting internal. It's collecting your own data. It's collecting your coworkers' data. You have a huge organization that's collecting every person's data as they're accessing the site. And you're assuming that the data you're looking at represents your users, but actually represents a good amount of it is your own internal folks visiting your site to do whatever they do. You need to turn on your internal filter. And there's a mistake I'm seeing a lot of people do with this. If you're not in your head like, yeah, I got that set up, listen to me, because you might have missed a second step. It's a 2-step process. And Google didn't make it too easy to know. Your step 1 is to go into your data streams, and it's all written up here. You want to define, your step 1 is to define the IP addresses. So, and Google makes it easy when you're going in to say, this is my IP address, exclude it from all the traffic coming to my site. They have a button you can click on it, and it'll actually tell you what your IP address is, so you can add it to it. So you don't have to guess what is my IP. So that's helpful. So this step is very straightforward. But if you set it up there, you actually have to come to another screen in Google Analytics to turn that filter active. Just because you created a filter doesn't mean it's activated. So you separately have to navigate to step 2 here, where you go to the data settings, data filters over here, the screenshot here, and then you have to make sure this says active. For a lot of us, I bet for 50% of us on this call, this probably says testing and not active. And if that is the case, you are counting your own internal data into your numbers, and you don't want to do that. Another correct item. So I have not defined my own domains for domain cross-tracking. This really applies if you're the kind of business who runs multiple websites and you're running the same Google Analytics code on those multiple websites. And the reason why you would do that is because you expect humans to your customers, your prospects, to journey between the various websites seamlessly as they're making a purchase decision. An example might be this business here, which this website, Gap, also owns Old Navy, also owns Banana Republic, and somebody on Gap might tab over to Old Navy, might tab over to this. And if I worked at Gap and I wanted to track all those separate entire domains as the same user, then I would have to set up cross-domain tracking. Do not confuse this with your subdomains like blog.mysite.com or shop.mysite.com. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about entire whole websites, mydomain.com, anotherdomain.com. If you're the kind of business that has multiple sites and you've got the same GA4 code on all of them, and you want to track that user behavior because you know people navigate back and forth, then you need to set up those 2 sites inside the cross-domain tracking. That's how Google Analytics knows that they should track those 2 domains under the same property for you. Optimize. Okay. Optimize. Now, remember, optimize is creating your own. So if you've corrected a bunch of things inside GA4, now you're ready to push in your own clean data, like your form fills and your e-commerce data and everything. Okay. So at this point, what you want to do is create those events. Here's the problem I see. A lot of us create GA4 events, like, oh, I'm just going to set up purchase events, or I'm going to track forms, without having some sort of plan that lays out all the things that I care about as a business and all the things I should track. If you don't document it, you're not going to set it up correctly. It's happened to me, and that's why I created a template, okay? So I made a template. It looks like this. It's got 2 tabs, the business tab and the build out tab. And so what I do before I set up Google Analytics for any business is I say, help me understand your business. What are the main website KPIs? So we first say, what are the business goals, actually? So our business exists, our website exists to generate leads for the business, to sell products. You know, for some businesses, it's just one of these. And for other businesses, it's all 3 or several. So let's take the lead gen goal for the website. So what specific actions on the website contribute to lead gen? If somebody does what, does it represent lead generation? So then I list out what those goals might be. I present this, by the way, to the client or to myself. If I'm doing, I even do it for myself, for my own GA4 setup, I create this. So this is just talking to myself or talking to the stakeholder and writing out what the KPIs, the actions people take on the website that I think constitute leads might be, and everything else. And then what I do then is I then go to the next tab, which is the build out tab. And this is where it gets a little bit technical, but I'm translating the goals into events that I need to build inside GA4. It ends up looking similar to this. I'm bringing another screen over here. Okay. It ends up looking like this, where I say, okay, I want to track request a quote. It's a generate lead goal. For the business, if somebody requests a quote, it means I'm helping the business generate leads. The description is that I put a description in there, somebody who fills out this specific form, I throw it in there. And then I ask the client, is this a conversion for your business, or is this just a nice to have? Is this mission critical for the business to track as a conversion? Client says, yes, I check it. Client says, no, I don't check it. Now I know when I set this event up, I'm not setting it up as a conversion inside GA4. How important is this for the business? How aligned is it to the business's goals? That's how I select the priority of how I'm going to, whether we should tag this now or tag it later, basically. And priorities are 1 to 3. After that, everything else here is explained when you're inside the screen I shared with you. But what we're doing here is you're saying,
is generate a quote, an event that Google Analytics has a recommended name for already, because GA4 actually has a list of names that is predefined. For example, every time somebody makes a purchase online, it's called purchase. You've got to call that event purchase. Every time somebody generates a lead, you can call it generate lead, but you don't have to, but purchase is set in stone. If you send a purchase of a product as a sale, if you call it sale or something else, it's not going to track the way it should. So you want to know, like, is there documentation that tells me how I should call this? And there's a link that tells you what Google's list of documented names are. So I fill that in. I fill in a couple more things as well. And then eventually I have a column that says, has this been done? Yes or no. I share this document with both the business owner, the business stakeholder, and the developer or the technical person, and we work together. So this document directly ties to the business goals that I created, which ties directly to the events I'm going to set up. So as the developer is creating this lead for request a quote, he knows or she knows to call it generate lead, and she knows it's a high priority. And when she's done, she's selecting yes. So I know the progress of everything. This is the right way to get your project going before you just go and start setting things up on your site, okay? So you want to have a plan. I call it a master plan. So you definitely want to make sure that you have one of those. If you get into that 3-day trial, it's in there, so you can see it. Okay, now I'm sending another blunder that I see with this is that sometimes people send what's called custom parameters into GA4, but they haven't registered those as custom dimensions. So here's the thing. Anytime you're sending a parameter is just a field that describes an event. So here the event is purchase and the parameter is transaction type. So I want to track the transaction type as, because that's something that my business cares about. Google Analytics has never seen this name before. So if you're putting something unique inside Google Tag Manager and you know it's not in any of Google's documentation, because I have the link for you in the other slide, Google needs you to register this inside GA4 so that it knows when it sees it, what it is. So you've got to take this and then add it as a custom parameter, and you do it right here inside your GA4 custom definition section. You just put in, okay, transaction type, and then Google knows when it comes through. Otherwise, Google will not register this dimension in any of your reports. You'll say, well, I see all my e-commerce sales, but what transaction type? Where's my transaction type column? I know I sent it through Tag Manager. Where is it in my reports? You won't see it because Google doesn't know what it is and you didn't register it. And that's why this Homer Simpson is spinning around, because he's looking for his parameter in his reports and he can't find it because he didn't add it as a custom defined metric. So you just want to do that. And if you're not sure if your developer or your technical person is sending any custom things, then you just have to ask them. All right. Related to this, for those of you that are running e-commerce sites, sometimes people take an event that is an e-commerce event, and then they create the event as a custom event inside GA4. This will only make sense to you if you have an e-commerce site. Somebody's been creating custom e-commerce events in our GA4 property. You can see the dog. It's not him, but he looks very suspicious to me. So I'm not looking at anybody. I'm not blaming any e-commerce folks on the call, but if you know that you are sending custom e-commerce events into your GA4 property, you shouldn't be doing that. You don't need to do that. E-commerce properties, e-commerce events don't need to be sent in custom. Call them what they are. Purchase, don't call it purchase complete, don't call it sale, just call it purchase. And that way you don't have to deal with, your e-commerce reports basically will be wrong. Okay, because Google specifically looks for purchase. All right. The other thing is, this, some of you might be doing this. I don't want you to confess, but if it is you, this is why your events are spiked up and they're wrong. So sometimes you create an event inside Tag Manager. You created it. It's there. And you can see I have add to cart inside Tag Manager. But then inside Google Analytics in the interface, you've created that event again. So this is the Google Analytics 4 interface under where it says create event. And you've gone in and you've created add a cart again, even though you're sending it through Tag Manager. Basically, you don't have to create events twice. Otherwise, they'll be double counted and you'll end up with duplicates of all your events. Your page views will count twice. Your contact form fills will count twice. Everything will count twice if you set them up in both places. So I recommend what I've learned in the years that I've been struggling with GA4, because it's a struggle. Let's admit it's a struggle. What I've learned is that it's very important to stick with one source for all your events. So I take all the events out of GA. I build them in Tag Manager because actually it's not that complicated once you get the swing of it. And that's what I do. I just create everything inside Tag Manager so I don't have to worry, is it also in GA? And that way I know I'm not double counting my events. We don't want to see this. We don't want to be like this guy that's photocopying himself over and over again. You don't want that in your reports. Okay. So events are not custom dimensions. They don't have to be registered. You don't have to create them inside GA, the GA admin section. So for all of you, I want you to go inside your admin section of GA, which is, so if you're here and you go to your admin, you're going to see your events are listed in the middle here, and you're going to be able to click on your events. Okay. And then you see events. Maybe you're thinking, but where are the events that I created? Well, they're actually, you have to click create event to see your already created events. It's very counterintuitive. So even though you're not planning to create an event, you have to click it to see anything that has been created. Okay. So if you click there and you see events listed here, then my question to you is, if you go inside Tag Manager and you go to your tags, okay, so it's loading for me right now. Basically, is the event that you've listed on GA under where I just showed you, do you see that same event in Tag Manager? So let's suppose I had an event called Generate Lead Email List. As you can see, I have one, okay? And if I saw it here too, that's what I'm talking about. You don't want to double create your events. And that's what a lot of people have been doing accidentally. Just because GA4 is so new, you feel like that's what you need to do. You don't. So don't do that. Your events will count twice. Every time somebody fills out my email list, and if that's the thing I'm tracking there, it'll show like 2 people filled out my email list. And that's not the case. And I'll be doubling my conversion rates. Okay. All right. Hey, I didn't hear back when I said okay, but I'm just, I'm the kind of person, I think I can hear you. I feel your energy. So I know you said okay. So let's keep going. Okay. Report. So reporting. So Google Signals is a problem. For those of you who have Google Signals turned on, you will know, because if you go to data streams, staying right there in the admin, and you click data streams, and you click on your data stream, you see how I'm clicking on my test account? You guys see, I practice what I preach. I have a test account. All right. Oh no, it's not data streams. It's actually data settings, data collection. Where it says data signal, Google Signals data collection, if there's a toggle here and it's turned on for you next to this, I'm not talking about down here, I'm talking about up here, Google Signals data collection. If there's a blue toggle next to this, what you're doing is you've told Google Analytics to collect data on people, to collect demographic data on people, age, gender, and interests. So it's collecting, who's male, who's female, what age groups, etc. Okay. So that's what you've toggled on if that is on. The unfortunate thing is that with GDPR and privacy laws, you have to really think about this, because what happens when you have Google Signals turned on is Google will add thresholding to your reports. Basically, if there's ever a line in your reports, say, we've all seen the channels reports, right? If organic search or paid search or whatever is coming in, and a large number of those people were tagged, were tracked, then you'll see the right number. But if a small number of people who came to your site via paid search were self-identified, they had so for you to track people, they have to turn on a setting inside their own Google account. So if say 3 people came to your site and they had it turned on that they can be tracked when you turn this thing on, then those people, it's only 3. So Google says, no, 3 people is too personal. It's too identifiable. So Google will remove those 3 people from your data. And 3 is just a loose number. Google doesn't tell us the number. It could be 100, could be 200, could be 1,000. I don't know. So Google will start to threshold your reports, meaning they'll exclude the folks who were self-identified because there were too few of them for the report that you're looking at. So your numbers will start to look funny. And you'll say, well, when I look at my data, the numbers don't add up. I don't understand why when I roll up the numbers, they don't add to the total that I see at the top because Google has removed the rows. So you're working with less data when you have Google Signals turned on, because Google always has to be aware of the fact that sometimes your users don't meet their threshold. So Google Signals is helpful, but here's how I would make the distinction. I think I have it explained here. No, right here. So if you have Google Ads, if you're running Google Ads, and let me say it this way for you, my people. If you are truly making fundamental business decisions based on people's demographics, then keep it on. Fundamental, critical decisions for the business based on that, then keep it on. The other reason to keep it on is if you're not making huge business decisions, but you are creating an audience inside Google Analytics based on people that come to your site and don't convert. So you've got a remarketing audience that you've created inside Google Analytics, and you're running Google Ads. So you're passing that audience into Google Ads directly from Google Analytics. That's the second reason that you might want to keep Google Signals on, because without Google Signals turned on, your retargeting audiences that you build inside Google Analytics will not work with Google Ads. So those are the only 2 reasons why you should have Google Signals turned on. Otherwise, turn that little thing off and enjoy more data, less thresholding, and better decision making, because you're looking at reality and not some data that is missing chunks of information. Okay, so it's all explained to you there. Reporting, okay? A couple things with reports. Now we're on the reporting stage. So we're still on reporting. We were on reporting just with the other one too. This one is about creating custom insights. So Google Analytics has a way for you to set up alerts. Basically, let's say, alert me every time I receive more than 10 conversions per day, for example. Or we're working on an SEO project, so alert me when traffic increases by X or more. You can set up these insights so that Google automatically alerts you and lets you know that these thresholds have been met. So I advise you to turn on some signals, and the next screens tell you how to turn them on. It tells you, you go to your home, insights, recommendations, click the blue button, then you follow the image that's shown here, which is to create selected audiences that Google will recommend to you, or start from scratch to create a brand new audience. Google will let you create audiences based on what things you want to check for. So you don't have to always be logging into Google Analytics every day. Did we hit that goal? How are we doing that goal? You just set an alert and go to bed, because you deserve a relaxation. Don't we all? We all need a little break sometimes. All right, export. Are you in this camp? You have no idea how to properly back up GA3 or GA4, and you're worried you might lose the data that you need? I certainly feel you, because like I said, Google is getting rid of your data in a year. And so how do we get it back? Google is right now playing hot potato. Hot potato, they don't want to hold your data. Google does not want to be responsible for your data. You guys know, I'm sure, because a large majority of you are in the EU or in Europe, you know that a lot of countries don't like GA4. And Google is trying hard to not own your data. That's why, in fact, the Explore reports inside Google Analytics, if you go to reports, I mentioned there's Explore over here, where you go to create custom events and custom reports from scratch. And I told you could turn the data retention to 14 months. This stuff, you can't even share Explore reports. So let's say there's a report in the standard area and you look at it and you say, oh, that's not what I need. So I'm going to learn how to build Explore reports and create a custom report. You create it, and you can't even share it with the stakeholder. There's no share button for someone who's not a user of GA4.
they have to be a user of, you have to make them a user. They have to log into GA4 to see anything. You can't email a report from explorations. So you're kind of stuck with this. So there are a few options for us at this point with this, with the data issue. Here's the thing. You could export your data out of Google Analytics using spreadsheets. It's the easy method. Literally, you just download every report. You go into GA3, you set your time frame from 2012 when you first set it up through June 2023, and you say export everything. You go to every report and you hit export as a CSV. That's an option. Takes time. It also keeps you sort of static because whatever you downloaded is what it is, and you can't pull it into any kind of dashboard in a very succinct way. But that's an option. You can do it that way. You can also do DIY yourself with BigQuery. So BigQuery is a separate Google tool that essentially allows you to directly import your data into a warehouse. Now, Google, the data doesn't necessarily have to live in GA4. But now the problem with BigQuery, I don't know if any of you have tried to use BigQuery, but it is a complex product and it's a learning curve. You have to now learn how to program, how to code, how to do things that you weren't doing yesterday. And I tried to learn to use BigQuery and it was a pain. You have to learn SQL, you got to learn how to call the data and create custom dashboards. And then you also have to learn Looker Studio, which is then how you visualize the data that you just kind of threw into BigQuery. So it's a different skill set that you would have to learn. Now, what I use, I'm building on an alternative to Looker Studio that will save me, that's going to save me time and my headache. I'll show you what I've started doing. Here's an example of it. What I've started doing is essentially creating, here, I could do this. I'm building GA4 reports that look like GA3. You know, we all remember this audience overview screen. Remember the screen, right? So I'm pulling the data in, I'm custom building this, pulling data in, and I'm also able to not only integrate information from Google Analytics, I'm also pulling in data from Facebook if I want to, pulling in data from the CRM systems that I use, like Salesforce. So I'm essentially able to create a true dashboard without relying on Google. So I'm working this. I've used it for a few clients and I'm tweaking it. If you want to know, like, I want to keep you apprised of this. So if I have it ready to demo, I'd love to share with some of you. So on that same page, there's a link. I'd love to invite you to come and take a look at it and give me feedback and see if this is something that could help you. But I'm trying to build something myself that doesn't require me to learn Looker Studio, doesn't require me to learn BigQuery, takes away the need for exploration reports, gives me complete control of custom creating anything I want and selecting the date ranges I want and building the dashboard whatever way I want. If I want to change this from a pie chart to something else, I can do it. So that's what I want to leave you with this last slide is that, yes, there are options that you can use, but I think they're not great options. The other one I want to tell you about is that basically it's a headache. Let me just say it's a headache. So Google's not making it easy. We have to find our way around this and we got to do it together. So that's what I've come up with and I'd love to share with you when I have it ready to share. All right. So let's summarize. Okay. So to summarize, these are the sprints that I believe it takes to do GA4 correctly. You cannot just go to exporting your data if it's not set up correctly. You cannot just go to correcting data if you don't have it set up in the first place. You can't optimize anything. So I think in milestones and frameworks, and this has worked for me. So I thought I'd show up today and share with you what has worked for me that I think will work for you as well. I hope I've been helpful to you today. I just want to ask you one last question. If you could implement any one of these blunders today, what would it be? I would love to hear. Which of these would you want to implement? Is it cleaning up your data? Is it getting your events set up correctly? You know, is it figuring out the reporting piece? Is it which one's giving you the most headache right now? If you could implement this, not only do I want you to write it down, but once you type it to me, I'm looking at that. Switching off signals. Yes. Getting events set up correctly. Checking GA4. Yes. For you. Somebody said checking that events aren't double counting.
Blocking IP addresses, yes, because a lot of us have it set to inactive. Figuring out why I'm missing data. Oh no, Laura. All right, so there's a lot going on, but I promise you, we'll figure it out together. Okay, we'll get it figured out. Get your demo account up so that you're working on non-live data and we don't accidentally lead to another blunder. Okay. So remember that you are a very valuable asset. Don't ever forget what I told you at the beginning, right? It's a lot of grind that we're going through, but what we produce matters to the business. Our work matters. So keep at it. And I'll just leave with, here's the QR code again. And here's the link so you can download this presentation and connect with me. And that's what I have to share with you today. Thank you so much for having me.
Mary, you're a wonder. Thank you so much. Did you say there was 15 blunders at the beginning of today's
Yeah, there were 15.
Yeah, so I'm going to be doing all 15. So that's where I'm starting. So thank you so much. That was endlessly useful and practical. Hopefully you can see the chat right now because it is just lighting up with big thank yous from a very grateful community. So thank you, Mary. So useful. I'm pretty sure your site is going to be getting a lot of hits over the next few days as well. So, and you'll be able to see them. You'll know that they're coming in because you've set it. So that's so useful. Let's pick up some of the questions because there's a bunch of open ones and I want to make sure that we get to as many as possible.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to pick up on this last chat message from Emma before I do that, who says, amazing, the easiest to understand GA4 presentation I've ever seen. So thank you. And that mirrors the general vibe from the community. So let's pick up the questions. The top one comes from Hannah, which is also duplicated across many folks in the Q&A, which is around excluding internal traffic. And a lot of folks are pointing to remote workers and dynamic IPs when it comes to excluding that traffic from your Google Analytics. So how do you go about excluding internal traffic when it's sort of spread across multiple IPs and remote workers, etc.?
I get it. There are two answers to this question, and this is a real problem. You may never get everybody. So remember that. Maybe you won't get everyone. But two things come to mind. The first one is that there is a GTM method that is available from Julius from Analytics Mania. He explains how to set up dynamic IPs using Google Tag Manager. So that could help with this situation. And the second thing that comes to mind is I just want to remind you, because I forgot to say it, that when I shared with you my thinking and how I laid out this is literally my process. And so when I go out to Google someone, where I go out to Google something like IP address for remote workers or remote staff, and I find a video that answered my question, I was storing it inside my so-called course, but it was really for me. So that when I would go up here and search for where I placed that video, I could easily find it, right? So you'll find that some of the material when you go in here are actually videos that I was watching to help me figure out some things. So not all of these will be me talking to you because I'm not the expert on every single part of GA4, right? So everywhere that I was able to find somebody that really went in depth and taught me, I put in their video, and so that you get to know them as well. So that's the second thing I want you to know is that you don't have to feel like you have to figure it all out. There are people out there that have figured some of this out. And so what I know is that there's a GTM method. Do I know it off the top of my head? I don't, but I know there is a method there. And while I'm here, use this search feature, everyone who's in here, to search anything. You could search anything and it'll find you all the times that this word is mentioned within here, which has saved me a lot of time with finding, if I type an internal filter, it could find all the lessons where that was. Oh, that was a bad one, apparently.
Never do a live demo.
There it is. It's internal traffic. I didn't call it internal filter. So I can find all the comments, all the specific lesson that talks about that. I don't have to spend my time trying to figure everything out because I didn't have it. So I created this because it helped me, and I hope it helps you too.
That's perfect. And I just want to highlight here, two things. I mean, the first is making it available for 3 days is a really lovely touch, as is making it available for a relatively affordable, well, a very affordable price after that as well is really appreciated. So thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
So,
I appreciate that feedback, because you never know quite how things will go over. So I love you for saying that. I hope you all feel the same too. Thanks everybody who's signing in.
not at all. Let's go to the next one from Doug. It's a fairly black and white answer, I think, on this one. And Doug says, if you create an event, will it backdate data or only use future traffic data?
Oh, I wish I could tell you that it would backdate, but it will not. All events are only from the day that you set them up.
Nice.
Which is why you want to set them up as soon as possible.
Bang on. Absolutely. Let's take the next two from Azim, who is himself a very talented SEO and will be someone who I want to get in the next season of webinars. So I'm calling him out. You come in on, Azim, whether you like it or not. So let's take the next two. So let's take the second one first, which is, in your experience, how accurate / trustworthy have you found Google Signals / modeled data?
So as a general rule, no analytics platform is accurate. All of the data inside Google Analytics is modeled, all of it. Google does not count your sessions one by one. There's documentation on this. So none of it is accurate. Nothing you do will make Google count every single session to your site. So the short answer is none of it is accurate. So I use analytics more from a relational perspective. I use it to compare 1 month to the next, 1 day to the next. Am I improving? Am I reducing? I don't use it for specific numbers. I use it for directional numbers. So it's never going to be on the nose if that's what you're expecting, but just know that it's in the ballpark and that the trend that is showing is likely accurate. That's
perfect. And that's a really, really great point. So thank you for making that. I think that is not something that is obvious unless you're in the world, in that world a lot. So I appreciate you making that point as well. Let's take the next one from Ellie, because Azim is sort of like the last one is like a feeling question. So we'll end on a feeling question in a moment. But this one comes from Ellie. So Ellie says, Google Optimize is being retired later in the year because more things can be done in GA4. If we use Google Tag Manager to set up events, do you think Google will eventually look to retire Tag Manager if the same things can be done in Google Tag Manager as Google Analytics 4? The subsequent question is, would you recommend Google Tag Manager or Google Analytics 4 over each other for event creation? They've gone for Google Tag Manager with their current setup.
100%. You want to go with Google Tag Manager. To answer your first question, Ellie, I don't think Google is getting rid of Google Tag Manager anytime soon. I think the reason why Google made the ability for you to create events inside GA4 possible was to try to have an option for people who did not want to set up Tag Manager at all. However, as marketers, as some of us, as people close to the analytics function, whether you're a marketer or not, there are going to be things you want to do with your website that you will not be able to do with the Google Analytics interface version of creating events. So I don't think Google will ever get rid of Tag Manager. It does more than just tag your site with Google Analytics. It tags your site with your Facebook pixel, with your LinkedIn pixel, with whatever, your cookie consent. So it's more of a universal tool. And so, yeah, I don't think Tag Manager is going away. And between GA and between GTM and GA for event creation, 100% GTM. Tag
Nice.
Manager.
Love it. You've heard it here first, or maybe not first, but certainly usefully. Let's take the next one from Lee, and then we'll take our last one from Azim. So Lee asks, is it worth setting up a duplicate Google Analytics 4 account to enable Google Signals if possible? So able to, is that even possible in your knowledge?
It's very possible. In fact, the first sprint, when you get in here, the setup sprint, some of the people on this call have taken the setup sprint because I released it last year after I came. So it just walks you through how to set up GA4. And so you just follow these steps and you just duplicate, you set up again what you've done. And yes, you can turn on Google Signals for the second one. And just to see where the anomalies are, that's a great test. You could absolutely do that.
Nice. Good idea, Lee. Well done. Cool. And then let's take the last one from Azim. And I wonder whether you can turn this into a positive at the end here, Mary. So Azim asks, Why do you think there was such a largely negative reaction from the marketing community when Google Analytics 4 was announced?
Oh, because it was a bad product. That's easy. That's really easy. It lacked so much, and it still lacks a lot. But you know, it didn't have landing pages. It still doesn't have a way for you to add annotations. There are a lot of things you can do, but a lot of things you can't do. And Google is actively, at least, hearing feedback and releasing lots of changes on a monthly basis. They roll out lots of changes and document it for us to see. But Google it's a product in progress. It's in development as we speak today, and it's not a complete product. So that's, I think, the frustration. And secondly, the second reason is because we don't like change. Okay, we don't like change. Even when the thing is free, we still complain, humans as a whole. And so, you know, here's a free product. Google says they're making it better for us, and we're complaining because it doesn't look the same, doesn't feel the same. We just have to get used to this new way of doing it, because Google's not going back. This is what it is. And we either switch from GA to something else, or we learn it. And I, for one, have decided to learn it. And I think the sprints is how I found my way through it. And I hope that they've been helpful to all of you today as well.
Hang on. What a lovely way to end. Thank you so much, Mary. A real pleasure. You've got a lol in capital letters from Azim, and it's just a ha-ha from Jade there as well at the end. So you've brought some smiles to people's faces at the end. That's it for the hour. I mean, it's gone by so quick. So thank you so much, Mary, for taking the time, and thank you to everyone for your great questions, your comments, and for turning up today. I usually say I hope this has been useful for you. I think it has been for so many of you. So really, really brilliant. Thank you all so much. We'll be back next Tuesday, where we're talking something very, very different. We're talking career paths on the journey to being a CMO. So if you would like to be there, then please do come along next time. All that said, thank you, Mary. Once again, thank you everyone for being here. If I could ask one favor, it's to thank the sponsors. And if I could ask another favor, it would be to share your favorite takeaway from today's session on social. And with all that said, we'll see you very, very soon. Take care, everyone.